Here we are for our third and final segment here with Jack Atherton. Jack, thank you again so much for talking with us. Let's spend just a couple of minutes, a little short talk. What do you think are the major issues in the election? How is media treating it versus how do you think we should be going about it? And how do we get the word out in the next, 40 days until the election? So what do you think are the big things that should matter?
I think the polls indicate clearly that most people care about the economy. Inflation has been an absolute killer.
Absolutely.
Ainsley and I were retirees. Luckily, we were able to put aside some savings. People who are reliant on Social Security with their cost of living increases are simply being wiped out. It's impossible. Donald Trump, I think, will be able to deal with inflation by opening up the spigots of energy.
Absolutely.
It'll give us the national security that we need because the wars that have broken out during the Biden-Harris years have been funded by the rising value of the oil and natural gas that the Russians had that financed their invasion of Ukraine. And, of course, Iran, as Trump likes to say, was bankrupt because of the sanctions that he put on and the fact that we brought down the price of oil worldwide. And they wouldn't have been able to give all of this money to Hamas and Hezbollah,
right,
and to the Houthis. So
Joe Biden, but the economy, like you say, the economy and the energy and the wars are all linked together because they all take tons of money.
Yes. Most wars have started over energy. You go back to World War I, the First World War that was really about petroleum, and since then, as kids used to say during the 1960s, when I was a teenager, they said the Vietnam War was all about oil, and they weren't entirely wrong. It wasn't just a domino theory. But, we have to assert our energy independence because, as Trump has said, and he's often mischaracterized, what we need is an all-of-the-above strategy.
Absolutely.
We're all in favor of renewables, but they have to be viable. They have to be practical. Look at the billions of dollars that were spent by the Biden administration, and they couldn't get any recharging stations.
It was $40 billion, and they haven't built a single one yet.
Because it's all graft. When we get into the kind of $35 trillion debt that we have these budget deficits. We have these elephantine, obscene budgets that are passed by a Congress that's not doing its job. I'm not Matt Gaetz. I don't think we have to, necessarily shut down government until we have a plan. But, you pass these omnibus bills, and it's all graft. It's corruption. If anybody doubted it before, when we used to give out Golden Fleece Awards to members of Congress, now we've had a president who's been taking, 30, 40, who knows how many millions of dollars from China, from Romania, from Ukraine. It's just ridiculous, and it hasn't gotten the coverage that it requires except on Fox and Newsmax.
And it's weird that we always have to say that they seem to be the only ones coming close, and I think they veered hard left since their early days. But so it's interesting that you point to energy as one of the center points. I think the other center point for the election is all the outcomes from having 10 million illegals spew across, because it's a public safety concern, it's a public health concern, it's a public, support and money and schools. It's everywhere. Do you think that's going to be a big thing as well?
This takes us back to our talk about the establishment Republicans, because for many years, the Wall Street Journal advocated, they editorialized for a 5-word constitutional amendment. There shall be open borders.
Really?
It doesn't seem possible. Look it up. That was their previous editorial page editor, and the guy who's there now, Paul Gigot, is not much better. They were in favor of cheap labor. The Chamber of Commerce was the Business Roundtable. The Republicans, thankfully, under Trump, have moved away from that position. We're in favor of immigration. I'm the grandson of immigrants. There's no reason that we shouldn't be able to have work permits that are properly policed, that we have screening for people so that we know who's coming in here. This country is all about immigration. Some people will say, well, you didn't have legal immigration. It was just open borders for a lot of our history. But as Milton Friedman points out, that's before we were a welfare state.
Right.
You can't have open borders and a welfare state. We're finding this out. We found it out for quite some time now. Europe is finding this out. And it's why, I was on with Brian Thomas this morning talking about the difference between the UK and Italy.
That was very interesting.
And many other countries now are cracking down on illegal immigration. You remember when Angela Merkel in Germany invited 1 million people in one fell swoop. And it really is not much different than what we've seen here in Springboro, where you have, a 25% increase in population overnight. And all the Democrats want to focus on is whether they really are eating cats and dogs or just ducks. The point is, you brought in 25% more people overnight. And there's no way
to handle it. They don't speak English, and they go to schools.
And they get welfare.
Yeah.
Now, I know Haitians because I worked for 5 years in Miami. Haitians are, by and large, everybody has good people and bad people, the sweetest people you can imagine, and they have not gotten the favorable treatment that we've given to Cubans since the Bay of Pigs, when we started a policy that said, if you're coming from Cuba, whatever your circumstances were, and you set one foot on American soil, you immediately qualify for citizenship. We didn't do that for Haiti, where you had just as many political refugees. That's, we can debate that policy. But illegal immigration for anybody has to be taken off the table because we simply can't afford it.
So I think we're in a crux of the situation now. I remember, so I got my start in the Tea Party days. And for me, it was, when you borrow $1 trillion in 100 days, you take over 2 car companies and a bank, you're going to get my attention. And we thought it was bad then. We are now in a much worse situation, and it feels like the divisions that basically was the entire Obama campaign and his 8 years in office was to divide people. It now feels like it's hit critical mass, that any spark's going to set it off.
The Tea Party experience in 2010 is revelatory because it was shut down by the federal bureaucracy, by the IRS. Not because I was a top-flight journalist, purely through happenstance. A local Tea Party head came to me in 2010, or 2011 perhaps, and said, look at this questionnaire that I've been sent by the IRS. What books am I reading?
Right.
Who am I meeting with? What are my relatives reading? It was something out of you throw away these terms too easily. Stalin.
Absolutely.
I won't go to Hitler. I'll say Stalin. It was incredible. And, of course, the Tea Party lost its ability to raise funds, and it was just a memory. And people were harassed beyond endurance. So what happened to Lois Lerner?
Right.
She retired. Full pension.
Right. So
we've got to deal with the bureaucracy. I know one thing you wanted to talk about is what if Trump could assemble a dream team? And one of the people we were interested in, a local guy, Vivek Ramaswamy.
Absolutely.
I hope and pray that Vivek will be put in charge of dismantling, eviscerating these federal bureaucracies, getting rid of entire departments if it's possible. It'll never happen if it doesn't happen under Donald Trump.
Absolutely.
We have a deep bench, but we don't have anybody with his kind of resolve.
Well, and anybody that doesn't care what people think. I mean, I think that's his superpower, is he just doesn't care.
After you've been shot at twice, I don't think you care about a lot.
I come back to when he was shot the first time, and he's actually got blood across his face. So at that point, you don't know how bad it is. You just know you see blood. His instinct was to just stand up and say, I got to make sure these people know I'm okay. Fight, fight, fight. The other thing is amazing.
That photograph, you remember, was taken down by Facebook. They said it was doctored. Then they said, well, it was a mistake.
No, it wasn't a mistake. The other thing that's amazing is if you've been among any crowd and there's a loud noise, what happens? They scatter like cockroaches in sunlight.
He loves to talk about this.
Nobody moved in that entire crowd. You were watching in real time, and there's tens of thousands of people standing there without knowing that the guy had already been shot.
And 2 assassination attempts, and the crowds are still coming. Now, I have to tell you, I wouldn't take my daughters to a rally at this point. I mean, people have to make up their own minds about that.
Right.
And I'd like to think that I have the courage to go to a rally myself. I've gone to a couple, but these people are heroes.
Absolutely. Well, let's end on that. That's actually an upbeat note, meaning, we're talking about the resilience of Americans that care.
More and more of them do, George. I think I was wrong about the red wave. I wasn't the only one. I think we're going to do it this time.
Boy, from your lips to God's ears, Jiminy. So this has been
I think it works better in the other direction.
Yeah, I think so. And we've been going that way for too long. Well, thank you for listening to the RestoreLiberty.us podcast. Like I said, you can find us on the web just about anywhere. Just do that into your search bar, or if you're on Apple Podcasts or Amazon, and we'll pop up, at least for now. And, of course, on Twitter, just look for Restore Liberty U, and you'll find us. We appreciate you listening. If you got any questions or comments, you can reach us online at RestoreLiberty.us or at 513-400-5832. Thank you.